If you are somebody in a leadership position or aspire to be, and you want to improve your quality of life as well, today we're going to fix both of those problems for you. I'm going to introduce you to, I'm pretty sure, the guy that Dos Equis based that most interesting man in the world character around, my boy Steven Kuhn. He is unbelievable. Let me read his bio for you for a second. So Steven Kuhn is a serial entrepreneur since 1996. Author and speaker, handpicked consultant by rock stars, singers, actors, business leaders, and helps them expand their value and develop strategies for increasing their QCL, or their quality of life. I also believe he invented the lay bag, which is that like airbag filled thing that everybody knows. But more than that, he has become a friend through Breakfast with Champions, and I have seen him pour into people, and he is the very best at the hot seat I have ever seen. He will literally come into a room for an hour and then open it up, and anybody can come up with any problem, and he gives tactical advice. And a lot of my audience, they're real estate agents, entrepreneurs, brokers, aspiring brokers or entrepreneurs. And I think this is going to serve you in so many different ways. So let's get right into the episode. I think this is going to be one for the record books. Welcome to the Prime People Podcast, where we cover all things that got us to where we are today, our team building strategies, the marketing and sales tips that we've learned through thousands of transactions, productivity tips, ways to really just hold yourself accountable to accomplishing what you want to accomplish, and all things content creation, personal development, and not to mention we have some of the best guests on the planet. We definitely do. And he wins the best background on the Prime People Podcast ever. Holy moly, Steven Kuhn. How are you? Oh, you're muted, brother. Hit that little mute button in the bottom left-hand corner there.
There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, doing great, brother. Thanks so much for the introduction.
That's awesome. Yes, Matt Lamarche is
the Parliament of Budapest, the Parliament of Hungary in Budapest, second largest parliament in Europe. Absolutely stunning. Hopefully the lights turn on while we're sitting here.
I appreciate you making time, because you are on the other side of the world. Our boy Matt Lamarche just jumped in to say hi. I think let's start off there, right? Where are you based out of? What are you currently doing? And then we'll go into a little bit of your history.
Yeah, well, I'm in Hungary. So I live in a small village today. I'm in Budapest, hence the backdrop. Just for you, man. Just for you. Wanted to have the epic backdrop. And I'm a business advisor. So I do business turnaround and business advisory, which seeps into the leadership coaching based on the Humble Alpha book, Unleash Your Humble Alpha. And yes, you may have one. There you go.
I sure do. I ordered it on Amazon, and I'm cutting through it. Yeah. So I guess let's start the book and the name of the book. What does being a humble alpha mean to you?
Well, a humble alpha is alpha on the inside, humble on the outside. What does that mean? It means I own my presence in life. My purpose is clear. My identity is clear. My purpose amplifies my identity, giving me a presence where I don't need to say who I am, what I do, why, what, how. I don't need to be loud. I just do what I do with a certainty that carries me through. And with the certainty, people always mix up the word certainty with certain about the outside world. You don't need to be certain about the outside world. You just need to be certain about yourself and your ability to deploy your genius in any given situation. And that's what the Humble Alpha is all about.
I love that context too. And I said to you the other day, you were actually doing your segment. I was up and ready for it. And I said to you, you took the persona of the ego and you literally set a flame to it and you burnt it down to nothing. And it really kind of exposed that conversation around people looking in the mirror and saying, where am I at right now? What am I aspiring to do? And not being so negative about it. Because I think we do live in a world where people are waiting for approval from somebody else, but it never comes, does it?
No. It never comes. And most people are waiting for permission, or they're waiting for something to happen, all the while programming the world that nothing's happening. You know, I mean, our thoughts, I always say this, our thoughts create our reality more than ever. Most people are like, yeah, well, you can't create. Well, just think of it this way. If you don't believe me, think about the negative things in your life. Why do the rich keep getting richer? Why do the poor keep getting poorer? Why do the medium stay medium? Why? Because they believe that. That's what they think, and that's how they stay. That breakout, that breakthrough, that person that shoots up to the top, they're few and far between, but there's one difference between them and everybody else like us who, or wherever we are, like Gary Vaynerchuk or whoever just shoots up to the top, is because they made a decision. I'm going my path no matter what. I'm not waiting. I'm not asking for permission. I'm doing it, right? And they do it in a way where they're facilitating, co-creating with the world as they move forward, what we call imperfect action, right? So it's something that when you harness that power, you literally, like right now, I'm in a place where I have so much potential. I have to hold myself back a little bit. Okay, don't go do everything. Let's do this one thing at a time or whatever. Let's focus on this, that, or the other. There's so much potential boiling up inside of me. The more you know who you are, the more you feel your purpose in life, the more opportunities you become and the more selective you got to be.
That focused energy is something pretty interesting about you. And I think understanding, because I could see you as a friend and say, you know, he could literally go into straight up business consulting and make multi-million dollars just doing that. He could do the Web 3.0 stuff that we're going to get into and talk about, you know, just that and create an entire world just around that side of things. You know, you are multi-talented. I do think a lot of entrepreneurs really struggle with that focus thing. And even in my business, agents will like drive anywhere to do any deal. Meanwhile, I'm like, no, what do you do and do it better than anybody else? So how would you get somebody to focus that is just being pulled in so many different directions?
Well, I always look at the basis. So what's your operating system, right? So unless you know your operating system, you're going to be like that, right? So your operating system is based, like in our case, based on Humble Alpha, we extract it from you, unleashing that your own operating system. It's just like an operating system on a computer. Mm-hmm. Right? It's there, it works. You just sort of know how it works, but it's there and you can count on it. But if you don't know your own operating system, then it's sort of, you don't know where you're going. You're sort of like, okay, where can I launch from? Where can I come back to? What can I build upon? And so that's the first step, is to find out your true identity and your purpose. And that you can do in the book. Second of all, it's real simple. Once you realize your true power through the identity, that's all you do. So I do three things in this world. That's, I talk to people like I do now. I do a lot of podcasts, do a lot of, calls and things. I make and close deals and I raise funds. Mm-hmm. Pretty much it. Now that can go into the advisory space and go into the coaching space, because it all has to do with person to person, right? And so when you find your true power, that's what you do, because that's what you're going to be best at intrinsically, intuitively, and you're not going to have to be chasing things around. Now, that being said, you just mentioned a few things that I'm doing, mm-hmm. but the foundation of everything I do are people. The Humble Alpha method. It's all people. So yeah, it's interesting.
As you say that, I constantly struggle with it, and I do know my core. It's real estate and branding. That is all I focus on, right? Everything else, I either delegate it or I hire out the things that are pulling me in too many different directions. Matt LaMarche had a really good question. Actually, said, as a professional though, how do you balance progress versus perfection? Because I see people get paralyzed in the decision-making or planning process quite often.
Well, balance, I don't believe in balance. I believe in integration. For me, it's all about integrating everything that you are and everything that you're doing into one life, because there is no, I'm this person at work and this person at home. Hopefully, hopefully it's not like that. Yeah. And the execution part is it's an ongoing process. You cannot make progress unless you take action. Everyone knows that. Waiting to take action in the planning phase, which some people, I lived in Germany for a long time, and they would have meetings about a meeting to plan. And it was endless. And I became massively successful as a business turnaround consultant because I would just go in and take action, imperfect action, right? And so that implementation phase starts immediately. As soon as that idea comes in, as soon as you have an idea, it's action. And that immediate action, that imperfect action, can be delegating something to someone. Hey, I need this business plan. And then calling, hey, we're going to need this table then and then. We're going to need this then and then. That's taking action. It's making it happen, right? And as a leader, you delegate the task and not the responsibility. You're still responsible for it. And that's a big issue there with a lot of leaders. As a matter of fact, when I was living in Switzerland, I was living in Zurich. I was getting recruited for Apple, and as like a cluster manager for 3 countries or whatever, German speaking. Okay. And they looked at my resume and they're like, how do you do all this stuff? How is it even possible? and 3 countries, and you're living in Switzerland. What? And I said, I delegate the task and not the responsibility. And they're like, oh. And then they like hung it on their wall there in their office. They're like, delegate the task, not the responsibility. It's nice to have a strap line, but it's the truth. It's the truth. You don't have to do all the work as a leader. Matter of fact, you shouldn't. You should be empowering those around you, building them up, and uncovering their super talents.
Well, I'm hiring you for your experience, your relationships, and the network, right? That's really why people hire me too. And I compare to what we do almost to a landscaper sometimes. Where I'm like, Steven Kuhn's hiring me to do the real estate job. You know, I'm going to have my guys that are coming and they're driving the backhoes. The other guys are going to like lift the bags of dirt. And then I'm going to oversee the operation and make sure it happens perfectly. Because if I'm carrying the dirt, it's harder for me to be higher level. So let's start back at the origin story, and then we're going to dig into some of the business tactics as well. I guess, Steven Kuhn, where did you grow up? How did you end up in the position that you're in now?
Look at that. It's lit up. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, that is beautiful. Wow.
Where did I grow up? I grew up in central Pennsylvania. And I was came from a very colorful childhood, put it that way. And I had to leave. I had to leave Pennsylvania. Like I had to get out. I just knew I wasn't where I wanted to be. Wasn't happy. Didn't like myself. A little bit chubby out of high school. I had no self belief at all. I was a guy that tried every sport and sucked at all of them, like so bad that I would lose every game. Like that was me, right?
Sure.
Put Kuhn in for one play, and I'd mess everything up. So that was me, and I believed that too, right? Wow. And so I said, I need to get out, and I need to make a new me, because everyone thinks I'm like this, so I think I'm like that. And I knew that at the age of 18, which was crazy, because I said, everybody says this is like this. I don't want to be like this. Like I don't want to be that loser. Like I don't. So how can I get out? My only thing was join the army, right? So I joined the army, and I'll never forget. I went to boot camp, had my 1980s feathered mullet, right? Believe it or not. And as soon as that razor touched my head, when they started shaving my head in boot camp, I watched in the mirror and I said, this is the new you. And I watched my new me being cut out of this hair, so to say.
Almost like a stone and chiseling through that stone, right?
Yeah.
Like an artist would.
Yeah. And I truly felt it. I was like, yes, now I can be who I know I'm supposed to be. I was 18 years old. Can you imagine what the hell I was thinking? But anyone else is like, I want to go drinking. But I was like, no, I got to be, And and I ended up going through boot camp, struggling a lot because I wasn't in shape like I thought I was. And
so pause though, because this dude's a physical specimen. If you guys haven't seen his Instagram account, go follow him, Steven. Like that is talk about inspirational, right? Having an idea that the fact that you weren't good at sports, you had all these things, these self-perceived notions. You're like, okay, so I'm going to change it. So continue. I had to say that for context.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, well, I was in boot camp. I was 18 years old, 19 years old, 240 pounds, right? And it wasn't muscle, right? So when I went in there, I couldn't run. I could do maybe 3 push-ups, 4 push-ups. Seriously, it was that bad.
Wow.
But I said, I don't care. I'm going to do it. So when we would do the fitness runs every morning, right? I would run at the front, even though I was one of the slowest guys. And they would have to keep, they couldn't pass you if you were in the front row. Like they had to stay behind you. So everyone had to stay in line with me. I slowed everybody down, but I wasn't going to drop out because I knew if I dropped out,
sure,
I would drop out and I would be like, just start fading back. So I would be running up front, vomiting on myself.
Wow.
From just exhaustion. And I didn't care. I'm going. And that drove my mind to a place that was almost like, now that I know plant medicine, it was like being on plant medicine. It was like being at a higher place. Because once you get past that pain, the vomit, the scare, being scared, you just get into this like peaceful sort of snap into this peaceful place where everything sort of flows. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And then you try it again the next day, you have to start over and you have to build up again. It's incredible things that I went through in boot camp. Also, I got against that. Well, there was the obstacle course. So there was a wall like this. You walk up to this side, you got to jump over the wall, no rope. And I'm like, what the, everyone else is doing it. I'm like, no upper body strength, nothing. And I couldn't do it. And the drill sergeant threw me down, put his foot in the back of my neck and called me every name in the book. Like just everything that I won't repeat here. Something snapped inside of me. I got so upset. I literally jumped laying down, jumped straight up and grabbed the top and flipped myself over the wall.
Wow.
And I was like, I landed on the other side, like, whew. and it was like angels, like, whoa, you know. And I was like, whoa, that was me the whole time. And from that point on, man, I just did whatever I wanted.
Do you think the drill sergeant knew that he was going to get that reaction from you, which is fascinating? Because I think about the drill sergeant in life as the adversity, right? I've experienced the times in my life where I'm like, well, this is going to destroy me. And I get through it and I come back like the Incredible Hulk, even stronger, because I'm like, oh, that was nothing. And now you're prepared for that next challenge, right?
Actually, I love that analogy. I love that the challenges in life are the drill sergeant. I love that analogy. And you damn right he knew what he was doing.
Fascinating. So you went to the Army. Where your deployments, whereabouts in the world were you deployed, and what was that like?
Well, I volunteered for, it was funny because when you join, you have a wish list of 3 places to go. I said Italy, Hawaii, and Germany. And little did I know there were no tanks. I was on tanks in Italy or Hawaii. So guess where I went? Germany. And
Italy and Hawaii, probably not very tank friendly islands and countries, right?
And so I ended up going to Germany. I loved it. I extended 3 times. Meaning I kept staying. I was there for 7 years in total.
Wow.
Without going back to the States. And then from there, I went to Iraq for Operation Desert Storm, spent 6 months over there, had a really rough time, more with a friend, losing a friend, and some of the civilian issues that were going on there at the time that really, really struck me. And when I came back to Germany, I decided to get out. And I did what they call a European out. And I out-processed in Germany, walked off base, and I was done. And just stayed in Germany and said, what am I going to do now? I literally had a rucksack and a duffel bag and an alarm clock. I'll never forget the alarm clock. It was a little soldier. You hit his helmet to turn it off. My aunt sent it to me. I'll never forget, because the first night that I was in my place in Berlin, after getting out of the Army, they were just sitting there. Sorry.
No, you're good.
1 second. They were just sitting there and my bags on the floor. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Your audio is perfectly fine. Yeah, you're good.
I'm losing you here. Okay, good. I don't know, for some reason it just cut out. Okay. They're sitting on the floor and this alarm clock's going off. And I wake up and I'm like, where the hell am I? Because I'd been in the Army for 7 years and suddenly I was in this civilian apartment and there's this alarm clock going off, which reminded me of my barracks. It just freaked me out. So that was my first day in civilian world. So yeah, I ended up staying in Berlin and did all kinds of crazy stuff in Berlin.
But now the transition to business, right? You had the military background when you left the Army. What was that like going back to civilian life? And what was your first foray into the business world?
What it was like going back, it was like being dropped off in the middle of the desert and you have no idea where you are. That's what it was like. Well, you got to realize, you go in the military right out of high school, you get told when to get up, when to do sport, when you're going to eat, what you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, where you can go, if you can leave, if you can't leave, everything, you're told everything. But you're trained how to do things as well, like just crush it. So it's not a very good mix for the civilian world. You go out and crush something, but you need a structure to do it. So the issue with most veterans are, one, they lose the family that they had in the military, one common core message and the whole works and the core belief and core factors and goals. They lose the greater purpose. So for me, the biggest thing was like, what does a job mean? It doesn't mean anything to me, right? I put my life in the line. I signed my life away to go to Iraq. I wrote letters to my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, and put them in boxes of my stuff. So when I don't come back, they have something to read about me. So I literally said goodbye to my whole family before I went to Iraq. That's purpose, man. You know what I mean? Whether it's good or not is another thing, but that's purpose. And suddenly you get out and you're like a postman, or I was a security guy, a doorman. I'm like, this doesn't mean shit to me. Like, this is not, it was really difficult, Justin. Really, really difficult. Matter of fact, I had PTSD so bad, I didn't know it at the time. They didn't know what PTSD was when I got out. And it was so bad. I was a doorman and I fought every night. It became the sport that I was doing. Like, I was fighting every night. And until I snapped, and I literally had like an out-of-body experience for 2 weeks. It was terrible.
I was going to say, so being a bouncer doorman in Germany, that's one thing I don't know if you know that we have in common. So when I moved to London, Ontario, the first job that I had was a bouncer at a bar called Jim Bob Ray's. And it was exactly like it sounds like it was. And I was 150 pounds soaking wet. I remember one time hanging off the back of some guy's neck. Like, he was probably your size. He was swinging me around and my legs were just flying. I got really good at talking, but I think that's such an interesting breakdown for somebody like ourselves. Because Kyler Jones, he's on my team. He's ex-military. He came to the real estate space, and same thing, right? Like, he's one of those guys that he's looking for direction. He's like, what do I do? And I'll run through a wall and I'll do it. And I noticed recently in him, he's really good at dealing with those first-time home buyers that are looking to get into a really rough marketplace, not because of the deal or the paycheck, because helping those people through a really challenging experience is a great purpose for him. And I think what you just touched on is going to be one of the biggest takeaways from this episode. When people are in their work, as we get into the business discussion later on, a purpose behind your work is so much more valuable than just an end game of once I get $1 million, I'll be okay. Or once I get that sale, or I'm on the podcast with this guy, then I'll be okay. Right. So how did you find your purpose after going through that time in Germany as a doorman?
Well, the purpose changes constantly, doesn't it? So the first thing I did after that was, well, when I was in the Army, I said, the first thing I want to do when I get out is open a cocktail bar in Berlin, Germany. Just wanted to do that.
Sure.
And 3 years later, I had it. Right. So I just drove hard. I had 3 jobs at the same time. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, drove to the airport, was there from 5 to 10 guarding airplanes, right? And seriously, like out in the tarmac, guarding airplanes. Wow. Totally ridiculous. Okay. And then I went home, slept for 2 hours, and I sold insurance from 12 noon to 5 p.m. Then I went home and slept for 2 hours, and then I went to be a doorman from 7 a.m.
So you compiled the money and then signed a lease to go get the cocktail bar.
Oh, exactly. And I spent, my first one was 220,000 D-Mark, which at the time was probably, I don't know, $180,000, something like that. Which I saved in 3 years doing all those weird jobs, selling insurance, making commissions, and I opened the cocktail bar, and that really took off. Then I opened another, and then a nightclub partnership, and the whole works. Wrote a book at the same time, lost everything at the same time, and it was just like this whole chaos. And then I went into the business world because I had a bar. It was funny because I was at the bar, and there was a guest that kept coming in, really cool guy, South African, and he's like, Steven, I'm bringing a company from South Africa, a listed company, PLC, from South Africa to Germany. Would you like to help me set it up? I'm like, talking to me? I'm a bartender, man. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, what, talk about no idea, right? And he said, yeah, I know you got it in you. And I'm like, dude, I have no idea. He's like, come on, let's do it. So we did it. I crushed it. 2 years, we opened up 7 locations. We had record revenues. The company, the owners flew up like, who is this guy? And stuff. And it was because I had no knowledge, so I had no barriers. Right. So it was wide open space for me. I'm like, well, of course we can do that. And then another company from the UK recruited me. Now that was a PLC from the UK, very big. They recruited me, and I'll never forget. I was sitting there they flew me to London, show me around and all this kind of stuff. Show me to the different, they had 87 locations in 9 countries. Right. And they made me the director of Europe for operations and development for all those 3,500 employees, the whole works. Right. And I'm sitting there on the second day, and I'm telling the CEO, I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't even know what a P&L is. You guys asked me to read. I don't what's a P&L. I was frustrated. And it was hot. The air conditioner was broken. I was sweating. He's like, why are you so aggressive? I said, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And he said, just shut up and do it. He goes, I see it in you. And if I see it in you, that means it's in you. So shut up and do it. And I was like, oh, damn. That's someone who hired me. Can you imagine?
I can 100%.
Yeah, someone who hired me is like, dude, I'm going to drag you through this, whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? Like forcing me to face myself. The most amazing guy ever, Mark Minter. I'll never forget that guy.
It's a cool story too. Again, just because I come from a similar background in the hospitality space, I only look for 3 things in the people that are at prime: intelligence, integrity, and energy. All the other stuff I can teach them. It's actually better when they're not from the real estate industry, because what we're doing in this space, I'm probably not the most popular guy when it comes to like old school broker owners and stuff, because we're just doing it very, very differently. And I love seeing that. And I think that's a big barrier that people need to get through, is they need the person with the perfect resume or the perfect CV and everything else. And I tend to disagree. I think you get a good team of people around you. That's everything.
Well, you said it. You said it best. You can't train character.
No.
Right? You can train skills all day long. You can't train character. Hey, I'm going to train you to be a better person and to do your job. No, it's not going to work. People are who they are. So you want to hire on character and train skill. I mean, that's the way we do it. So,
well, George St. Pierre and Lex Friedman on the Lex Friedman podcast were just talking about this. It's an old episode, but George St. Pierre said, you can have somebody with all the skill in the world and no character, and they are going to rob you blind, and you're going to end up with nothing. You can have somebody with all the character in the world and no skill, and you can train the skill, or you can find the right position for them too, right? But it's understanding that dichotomy. So now you transition into the business world. Maybe explain kind of where that took you in the different directions into where you're at today.
Well, I always got thrust into these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they sent me to the States to take over a joint venture between a British PLC, the British PLC, and the American NASDAQ company. It's a huge company. And we were sitting in a meeting one day. It was all the board of directors from one company, all the board of directors from the other company. I'm sitting there, imposter syndrome, going like, "What the hell am I doing here?" Right? And I was a development guy, so I was doing all the development for the new locations, and they were arguing about something. And this CEO from the NASDAQ company is quite famous, quite well known. Is in the New York, he did like CNN and BBC, and he was on the New York Times on the front page and stuff. Really famous. And he said, "Everybody, shut up. All right, Steven, what do you think? Let's get the specialist here." And I was like, "Is he talking to me?" And he said, "What do you think?" And I was like, "This, and that." He goes, "Okay, that's what we're doing. Next point, let's go." And everybody looked at me like, "Holy shit, who's this guy?" And that sort of gave me a mark. Like, okay, Steven's someone that you can count on to stand up when the going gets tough and he has to like toe the line. And from there, it just, I got offers from everywhere. And at the point still, I didn't have a degree. I didn't have nothing, right? That's when I said, I better get a degree, right? So I went out and I finished up. I took my Army stuff and finished up and made it into a bachelor's credit hours kind of thing. And then I went and got an MBA in the UK. Right. At the same time, I was working for this corporation. And by the time I was done with that MBA, I had left the corporation and didn't want to do it anymore, but I have to finish what I started.
Sure.
And that taught me a big lesson too, because the MBA slowed me down, made me analyze everything, got me used to not making decisions, to taking imperfect action. It took like 2 years off of my entrepreneurial life just to get out of that funk.
Interesting.
Yeah, because if you get an MBA, it isn't for an entrepreneur. An MBA is for an employee. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. And then that took me into, I was still an entrepreneur. Even when I was working for the corporate world, I was an entrepreneur. Like I worked for them, but I also did other things, right? So I had my cocktail bar still, had the nightclub partnership still as well. And so I couldn't be an employee, right? I had to be a self-employed guy. So I was like a contractor for them. And then I had my other businesses. Then I wrote the book. Then I did TV. Then I was like a news anchor, a guest news anchor. I was even a guest VJ on MTV, country music in Germany. Can you believe that?
The most interesting man alive. But here, let me go back a second because I'm curious about this piece. When you're running multiple businesses, you're in the corporate world and you're consulting with these people, how do you manage all of those different things? Going back to that kind of locus of focus, how do you do that or compartmentalize the different businesses?
Well, I had 3 businesses and the corporate thing. And I had 3 leaders in those businesses and I had the corporate leaders.
Okay.
And I just met them once a week. Boom. The corporate guys more, my other guys once a week or at night. It was cool because we had the bars and everyone knew it. So whenever there was a staff party or whatever, they'd all come to my bar and, we'd go in there and so I double dip as well. I'd be making revenue from them as well.
Yeah, I could see that too. But it actually goes back to what you said earlier on, right? You're not delegating the responsibility, you're delegating the task, but essentially you become a firefighter because you're putting out fires for all these people. And an air traffic controller, they're like, "Hey, Steven, where are we launching the planes?" You're like, "That way." And then they go off and do it, right?
Yeah. No. So there's a rule that I go by that I implemented a long time ago. And that's the 3 choice rule. If you come to me with a question, right, you have to present me with 3 solutions from 3 different angles, 3 different perspectives.
Oh, I love
If you
that.
don't, I'm going to send you away to get 3 more. And, they're like, "Okay, why would I need?" First time they're like, why, what? Just think about it. Just go. And they come back with 3 different ideas. And I'd say, "Well, which one do you stand behind?" "Well, I think this would be the best." "Okay. Will you do it? You want to do it?" I'm asking you, do you want to? Yeah. Okay. Well, then go do it. And that was the last time they ever asked me. Right.
Yeah.
So you do that with all of your leaders and they come up. And if you do ask, "Hey, what's going on? Hey, okay, we got this issue. These are the 3 ways we looked at. This is the one we chose." And you're like, "Oh man, great choice. Awesome, brother." Boom. And then off you go. And he's like, "I just did a good deed." And that's how I delegate. That's how we delegated everything in every business I've ever had. And I mean, not just delegating to my level, but to the levels below, helping them do the same thing, where you're disseminating not only that I like to call it sort of purpose delegation, but also the vision of how that works and what it does for the company.
Well, again, your leaders creating leaders, right? It's a podcast about leadership. And it took me years to figure this out. But when like someone would come up to me and say, "Hey, Justin, how do I do this?" And I just give them the answer. I'm not teaching them how to solve the problem. I love the 3-step solution. I'm going to implement that here of saying, "Hey, I want to do this. Bring me 3 solutions before you bring me a problem." I think that's unbelievable. We got a bunch of people here. Wally Bressler, he crushes it on phone sales. Love the topic. Best leaders are not those with the most followers, they're the ones who help create even more leaders. Literally what we're talking about. He posted this a little while ago. Roger Horvath is an interesting guy. So he's on my commercial real estate team, loves the book, Humble Alpha, really enjoying here how you overcame Breakfast of Champions family. So Roger Horvath is actually holds the highest level of helicopter license classification in Canada. He flies air ambulance for the local hospital.
Something else about Roger. His last name is Hungarian.
Oh, there you go.
Your home country's parliament in the background, Roger.
Yeah, you talk about purpose too. When I sat down with Roger and we were trying to figure out kind of his brand positioning and like what matters to him, I want to know his purpose. And he told me like one of the best things that he gets satisfaction out of is flying sick kids in the helicopter for the Sick Kids Foundation, right? Which is, yeah, just rocks me to my core. And then Eureka at Sea, what a pretty view. Of course it is. Nice to see you. Eureka. Sorry, go ahead, Steven.
One of the most beautiful views in the world. Yeah, I always wanted to be a helicopter pilot, but you know, it never panned out. I guess it was one of those things you wanted to be, but never really pushed it. So,
well, when I host the Super Summit and I invite you as a speaker, Roger will take you up there, and I'm sure you guys could have some fun and chop it up. Sound like a plan?
Yes, awesome, Roger. Bet I'm there.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I think I know you well. I think we've spent hundreds of hours together at this point, even though we've never met. Feels like you're kind of a brother in arms, and I think that is such a key part of your story is those things that you've overcame and how you share them, right? I think it's one of the most interesting things about you of how vulnerable you can be in front of a group of people, but how empowering it is at the same time, because it helps you with your identity and your locus of focus. So I do want you to expand on that as a leader. How has being vulnerable helped you grow your community?
I wrote an article for Entrepreneur Magazine or entrepreneur.com, and you can look it up. It's how to use your vulnerability as your superpower. You know, so I would go into these board meetings or at sales or whatever, in these board meetings. Roger, let's go.
Yeah. So you see that, right? That's awesome.
And all these guys would be in there with their suits and ties and their laptops and their PowerPoint presentations and their da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I would show up and say, hey, I'm a one-man show. You know, I'm a one-man show. I will come in here. I'm agile. I'm quick, and I can move, right? And I get the job done. You put me on a task, it'll get done. Overachieved every time. And I would let them burn themselves out with all this. I would just tell them straight up, like, this is who I am. This is what I do. And I'll crush it for you. And when the same conversation I had with Andrea Bocelli's manager, who was his wife, Veronica, when I was talking to them, they didn't ask me to come. I just went, right? And I said, look, this is how I work. This is what I do. And it's your choice if you want to work with me or not. It's like, that's it. And they're like, okay, let's do it. Because they're not used to someone like going, what do you mean you don't want it? You're just, because that's the whole point, right? If I want something bad enough, I'm holding on to it. Too much, I'm holding on to it. It's called excess potential. If I make something too important or too desirable, too much emotion, then I'm creating excess potential, which creates chaos because you're not like this anymore. You're like this. And when you're like this, all this out here doesn't get taken care of. You don't see what's going on. People are going off left, right, front, and center because you're like this, focused on this one problem, this one issue, whatever it is, giving it too much potential, excess potential, they call it. And so that coupled with no against energy and the want energy. The want energy is awesome. This is something for every leader right now, every entrepreneur right now. I love this. It's so funny. Someone says, I want to make $1 million. I want to start my own company. I want to quit my job. I want to, right? And then what do? Start a company. I better make a business plan, right? I better sit down and talk to people, maybe talk to some investors, get some ideas, read some books. So I want to build a company. Okay. What do you do when you want to go check the mail, right? What do? You go check the mail. Do you make a plan? Do you go, I can do it. I believe in myself. No, you just go freaking do it, right? Well, that's the energy that I'm talking about with no excess potential. You want to start a company? Take imperfect action, create and co-create with the world around you as you move forward, and you will create your company. That's in everything that we do, whether it's a relationship or your business, whatever it is, imperfect action, creating as you go and co-creating with the world around you. It's so key that we forget about the how we're going to do something once we gain the certainty that we can. And that's because when I focus on the how, all this stuff out here, luck, coincidence, new doors, new connections, people like you that we just meet, all these kinds of things, I won't see that because I'll be like, no, I got to do it my way. I got to do it this way. This is the only way I can go. And that causes a lot of people not to reach their full potential at that time in their life, because potential grows as you go. It's a cascading. For me, it's cascading. I've never gotten somewhere and said, oh, I made it. Good. I'm done. Yeah, so no matter what I do, I'm like, all right, that was cool. What's next? It's always like that for me.
When we talk about purpose and challenges, right? And I think everything you're explaining, I've seen come to fruition in our world as well. When in our industry, again, because we're talking to a lot of people that are in the real estate space, those people have created an industry where they're just so thirsty for people's business. Like they will go to a seller and buyer, and the public's like, yeah, well, you're a dime a dozen. Every agent's going to tell me the same thing. And we've really changed the model from a standpoint where we built a platform where I can walk into a listing, be very candid, say, I'm going to charge you more money. I'm going to sell your house more than anybody else. And, I don't need your business because we're successful, but I want it. You could probably use somebody else. You're fine without me. I'm fine without you, but we're better together. That's such a different mindset and energy when you're talking to somebody. And the other interesting thing you pointed out was when it comes to how the business has grown, we have had times in our life where we were too focused on this. But then we went back to our core values, the foundation, the operating system. We want to change people's lives. And we realized years ago, we were going to go down the path of a typical brokerage and agent count and office count. And just really, that's for our egos. Really, when you think about it, that doesn't change people's lives. That really just changes our lives, right? And we switched and we started just focusing on the people and the system solutions for people problems. And we're getting calls from our agents saying, you changed our lives. And I'm like, man, and it came from such a weird place that I would have never thought possible.
Well, you're co-creating. You're allowing them to do what they do, and you're co-creating with them something that you alone could never have created. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Without that 360-degree input with everybody involved, even the energy that they have, without even saying a word, changes things sometimes. And when you realize that, man, every time I'm stepping up and I'm taking imperfect action and I start co-creating with someone, you never know what's going to happen. And that's awesome. Okay, you just have your direction you're going, take imperfect action in that direction you're going, and know with certainty that it'll work.
Again, like I think of Nathan Smith. I posted a photo on my Instagram of him today. You'll understand the backstory when I tell you this. I hired him. He's working retail at Lululemon. Great guy. He's like a male model back in the day. So the women always loved him. Married, loyal, intelligent, empathetic, creative, musician. Very calm demeanor. I'm chaotic. I'm high energy, 1,000,000 miles a minute, ideas for days. And when I started working with him, I posted today that he influenced me a lot. People would look at me and be like, well, you own the company and he worked for, I'm like, no, you don't understand. He never worked for me. We worked together, and he's influenced how I appraise properties. He's influenced how I approach certain relationships, because sometimes I see things in his personality that suit the relationship that I'm walking into, right? And it is co-creation. Versus where you and I grew up, parents basically went to university so they could skip the rungs to go work in management for a company. I don't think companies are really going to be task managers anymore. I think Web 3.0, and I think the world is heading to a place now where the individuals are the assets and they can choose or not to choose to co-create, right?
And that's exactly what's happening. You see it, COVID really put that into high speed.
Yeah.
Really put it into high speed, because now whole companies depend on the guy sitting in the house or the woman sitting on the edge of her bed doing her laptop stuff. It's really gotten to that point.
Yeah, it's people over profits, and I've said that before. Amazon can't compete with me because we focus on people, and Amazon's focused on profits. I do want to talk about the Have NFT. I want to kind of give you that platform to discuss it. It's so interesting to me. So pretend I'm a fifth grader. Explain to me what Have NFT is.
Okay, so Have NFT, Have stands for Humble Alpha Veteran Empowerment. Have, of course, Humble Alpha, of course, is according to the operating system. And what Lane and myself, Lane Blow is my business partner, Sarah Singh and Pat Wenger from Canada, actually, we're the four founders.
Okay.
And we decided, we had a mission. We said, well, how can we take the Humble Alpha and bring it into the veteran space? Because we've been doing veteran entrepreneurship training and mentorship for over 4 years now. And we have the largest group on Facebook, 16,000 veteran entrepreneurs, and we have a paid group. And we do live events, we do online symposiums, we do retreats to Peru with veterans, and work with plant medicine to expand their consciousness and let go of blockages and PTSD and all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to take it to the next level, and that means creating a revenue generating machine, so to say. Because when you're out there just doing retreats, you do 10 people at a time. Then you help 10 more, then you help 10 more. What we're looking for is the one issue that bothers me the most personally, and it's really bothers me today, because it's the 22 veterans a day commit suicide, right? Or take their own lives, or whatever you want to call it. People get all hung up on the what, but it's suicide. They're killing themselves.
Sure.
And it's been doing that for 20 years. And there's 46,000 veteran nonprofits in America, and that number has not gone down. Why? Competition and fragmentation of the market. When I'm a soldier in trouble and I don't feel good and I want to talk to somebody, I Google, I get 350 different numbers, 3,500 different numbers. Well, on the blockchain, we're going to consolidate all of that. So we're not creating anything new. We're working we're building up to 100 nonprofits. We're going to drop profits from our NFT sales into those nonprofits, and we're going to have a consolidated place on location on the blockchain where you see the healing modalities and the results. You see all of these nonprofits, what they can do and what the outcome would be. So you can choose one central location. It's not only for the veterans though. People forget that when a soldier goes to war, they leave wife and husband and kids or mother and parent. That's trauma as well. They need assistance as well because they are part of the military family. And when the military, the guy leaves or the girl leaves the military, the whole family loses. Mm-hmm. And so it's a big deal. There's 18 million veterans in America. We've already got Canadians lining up. We've got Brits lining up. We've got Australians lining up. So when you buy a Have NFT for $400, depending on the crypto, you buy $400. You are automatically donating up to 100 veteran nonprofits, and you're ensuring that the ecosystem that I talked about before, which is in the military with the esprit de corps and the brotherhood and all that kind of stuff, and the sisterhood, that's being built in a place where everyone can converge and know, hey, all right, Marine, yes, Army, yes, oh, family member, military spouse, oh my goodness, yeah, Gold Star mother, Gold Star wife, all of these people, they all have a place to go now where they can be recognized and find one source of solutions. That's what we're going for. It's the biggest undertaking that you could imagine. It's bigger than the Veterans Administration, if you look at it that way, which is a huge administrative, tanker, I guess you could say. It's not very agile. And through the blockchain, we're able to think that big. Because when you program something in the smart ledger, which is basically the contract behind the blockchain, it's set for life. So you do it one time, and every time money comes into our account, it automatically goes to all those 100 nonprofits. Otherwise, we write checks every month, 100 checks. I mean, can you imagine?
Well, yeah, we've talked about that too. I think everything's going to go that direction. Yeah. Like I'm doing paperwork on a deal right now too. And like, it's gone back and forth 4 times through email, and like the human error, it's like driverless cars. Eventually the human error is going to be taken out of it. Right.
Yeah. Well, also blockchain. I mean, there's, fractional real estate investment as well. I mean, what you're doing, people buying NFT, like we're working with different partners, but ours, we give a return on investment. So basically a profit share, we stake part of our profits and we earn interest on that. And then we pay it back out to the NFT holders. Yeah. And, we're readjusting now because we launched on a new platform, a new marketplace, a new token, a new NFT, everything was new. And we did really well on our first weekend ever. It was like, it blew us away. It was amazing. Yeah. And now we're regrouping, changing a few things around to make it more streamlined for the buyer, and then we're gonna really push it out again. But the point is, we have 4 drops. Once it starts with the 4 mascots: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and they're just beautiful. And then we have a special edition Medal of Honor recipient Florent Groberg NFT that will blow everybody's mind. I mean, this is incredible. You can only get that if you're one of the first 500 that buys the first Bulldog NFT. So that's just where we are, and we're trying to make it. It's difficult, I got to tell you, because the crypto space is 5% of the planet. Yeah. And they all expect one thing. You make an NFT and you sell out overnight. It's good. If it doesn't, it's crap, right? Well, we never thought about that. We're thinking, okay, this is a sustainable way of generating revenue. We've got people lined up who wanted to do their NFTs on our platform. And so we're going to use this as revenue generating and exposure for these veteran organizations and the other nonprofits. And so that's how we're thinking. So we have to educate the 5%, but also educate the 95% on what crypto is and an NFT is, right? So it's compounding. And I can tell you too, it's long game. It's a very different scale. And you take your business acumen and you roll it into a space where people are almost acting like they're gambling. I think it's a very different thing because the utility behind the NFT is very interesting. So everybody go check that out. I'm going to give you the rapid fire round of questions. Then I'm going to get you out of here because I want you to go to enjoy that beautiful evening that you have overseas. So what would be the greatest lesson that you've learned up to this point? Don't believe that you can't do anything. Simply believe you can do everything. I don't know how many times I caught myself thinking like that, and it stopped me from being great. It stopped me from stepping into my greatness. It stopped me from stepping into something that, how many close calls I had with greatness, and I mean like greatness on the scale of the outside, not greatness on the scale on the inside. Like, I could have been a celebrity. We were producing films, and hanging out with Tarantino, all this kind of stuff. Like, you know, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. So my biggest lesson is, don't think that you can't do anything. You don't have to do what you're doing right now, right? You don't have to stick to what you're doing right now. No matter how amazing it is, how much money you're making, what everybody says, oh my God, you can do whatever you want. And that can be nothing in Peru, or it can be everything on the moon, whatever you want. And it's true. It's that the only thing that stops us is us. I hate these motivational talks, but
no,
it's really
it's
how
true.
you have to think like that. Because if you don't think like that, that's what you get. The universe will always give you what you want. So if you're thinking, man, it's shitty today, and they're gonna be like, here you go.
Yeah.
You know? So we gotta watch out for our thoughts. Thoughts become things.
I saw a post the other day, and it was just that. It was a younger girl, and she's like, you know, people ask me how I'm so positive. She's like, well, if you look at the world in a positive light, things are going to work out well. And if you look at everything negative, it's going to be bad all day long, which is very true. And I know lots of people that have a lot of money that are not happy, and lots of people that have nothing, that have love and respect, and are the happiest people on the planet. Yeah. So it is very true. I'm very curious about this question. Whenever I meet people like you, you know, there's obviously a base that you are putting effort into, you know, the basics, right? The things that you know are going to move the needle, that quick decision making, but probably 20% of your brain is learning something new that's fresh to you, right? Like you walk into a jiu-jitsu academy for the first time. What is that new thing that you're learning that you're really excited about right now?
I would say metaphysics, the power of energy, the power of intention. Behind there's some freaky stuff out there. You know, some really, really freaky stuff. But I like to break it down, make it logical. Like for me, like sort of Barney style, as they would say. And then I write it out and see how I can make it palatable, so it's not so like woo woo, as they would say. But how do you actually make it into action steps? You know. So right now it's metaphysics. There's a 35-hour audiobook. Right. I'm listening to it for the third time. It's called Transurfing Reality. Right. And it's got a lot of the stuff that I was talking about already in there, you know, like no against energy and excess potential and all this kind of stuff. And when you apply these principles, what they're talking about in this audiobook, man, it's so powerful. And then there's things that you can do there that actually change the world around you in an instant. Like in an instant, you can see it. Like, I'm going to do this now, and you do it, and boom, world changes. Like, I don't mean the world, but the people around you, the energy, the way they act towards you, the way they react towards you,
the way you react to situations, everything changes. One thing you can do is you can download or you can order the Humble Alpha book. I'm going to drop that in the comments right now so people can click on that and go check it out. Two more questions. One, how has failure shaped your life?
It's everything. It's everything I am right here, right now. I failed way more than I've succeeded, but that failure is not a label from me. It's a label from the outside world and from those who were looking on, saying that you said you were going to do this, but this is what happened. It wasn't a failure for me. It was a stepping stone. It was a cascading effect that helped me grow and build this foundation that I'm standing upon right now.
That's a through line of every successful person I've met. They've failed their way to success. And I think you do a great job inspiring people to not be afraid of that and be their truest selves. So the last most important question, because you've given so much to people, what can we give back to you? Is there a cause, somewhere we can send them? Where can they connect with you? My platform is yours.
HaveNFT.io. You know, just go to HaveNFT.io and just get one NFT for $400. Right? You get one NFT for $400, you're going to be giving back. You're going to get a little something back too. And you have a memento, which is a digital challenge coin. Challenge coins have been around since the Roman times, right? So they're given to soldiers for doing good deeds and winning battles and stuff. And it's one of the highest military collectibles that you can find anywhere in the world. It's that old. And we've made them into challenge coins, or we've made them into digital challenge coins, which are NFTs. So go ahead and grab yourself one and HaveNFT.io. If you have any issues, just let us know. Write an email, and we'll help you out.
All right. Well, if anybody out there needs to have a fire lit under them, he's at Breakfast with Champions in the morning as well. Go follow him in all the places. The links are in the bio. Thank you, Steven. We appreciate your time as always. And I'm sure we will see you in person in a helicopter in London, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, looking forward to it, brother. I'm
Awesome,
looking forward to it, man. All right, man. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.